There's joy in the journey, peace in the climb. Even in the waiting, love's right on time. So breathe in the beauty, let go of the fear, you're not alone.
Hey friends, welcome to the second episode of Joy in the Journey, a podcast about finding beauty in brokenness, strength in the struggle, and joy in the journey. I am your host, Jaja Fortuna, and today's episode is a personal one. I want to open the door a little bit wider and invite you to get to know me, who I am, where I come from, and a little bit of my likes, and also how living with sickle cell has shaped but not defined my life. Hola mi gente hermosa, bienvenidos al segundo episodio de Gozo en el Viaje, un podcast sobre encontrar belleza en la fragilidad, fuerza en la lucha y gozo en el camino. Soy tu host, Jaja Fortuna. Y en el episodio de hoy quiero abrir un poco más las puertas de mi vida, quién yo soy, de dónde vengo y cómo vivir con células falciformes ha influido pero no definido mi vida. Y como siempre, este episodio va a estar disponible en YouTube con subtítulos. Y si ustedes tienen dificultades con activar esos subtítulos, por favor, miren en el comentario o en las notas y allí va a estar. Oi família, bem-vindos ao segundo episódio de Alegria na Jornada, podcast sobre encontrar beleza nas dores, força na luta e alegria no caminho. Eu sou a sua anfitriã, Jaja Fortuna. E no episódio de hoje, quero abrir um pouco mais as portas da minha vida. Contar-vos quem eu sou, de onde venho e como a anemia falciforme moldeou, mas não definiu a minha vida. E como sempre, este episódio vai estar disponível no YouTube com subtítulos. E se tiverem alguma dificuldade a ativar os subtítulos, as instruções vai estar nas notas. Alright, so who am I? Who is Jaja Fortuna? Well, my given name, meaning my birth certificate name, is or was Joana Sali Santos Jimmy, then adopted as Joana Sali Santos de Oliveira. If you're a little bit confused, stay tuned. I will go a little bit more in depth and it'll all make sense in episodes to come. I was once Joana Santos Bell, which I took out the Sali because I just felt like my name was very long. And to explain that, I will also be doing an episode on divorce. Yes, Bell was my previous married name. And now I am unofficially Joana Santos Fortuna. Jaja is a name that was given to me as a home name. So back home, kids often had a school name and a home name. And so most of my closest friends and relatives often call me Joe, Jaja, Jajinha, and my favorite is actually Jaja. So I go by Jaja. Now that I'm married, I love and cherish my husband's name. So on this podcast, I decided to go by Jaja Fortuna. And that's a little bit the part of who I am. I was born in Angola, Africa, more specifically in the province of Malange, in the country of Angola, within the continent of Africa. And if you were born in Malange, you are called Malanginha, which I'm very proud to be Malanginha. Which, fun fact about Malange, it is well known for the Calandula Falls, which are beautiful waterfalls. And I'm so excited to and can't wait to go back home and visit. It's just so beautiful there. although I have been living in the States for almost 28 years, I think it's gonna be 28 years in August, I still carry my roots deeply in my culture very proudly. I'm blessed to be to say that Portuguese is still my mother language, which I'm very fortunate that my parents at home they would say, okay, outside you might speak English, but here inside our under this roof it is Angola, so you will only speak Portuguese. Another way I carry my culture is through foods and music. I love food. One of my favorite plates is feijoada, which is like very fancy rice and beans, I want to say. And then I just really love the rich musical culture of Angola. And I love dancing, which I have mentioned before. I love dancing kizomba. I love dancing samba, which is two dances that actually are originated from Angola. Um, Even though, due to sickle cell, it is a little bit exhausting to dance these days, but I still, have a little pep in my step. Um, I am a woman of faith and have grown in my faith through my struggles with sickle cell anemia. Okay, for those who do not know what sickle cell anemia, let me back up a little bit. Sickle cell anemia is an inherited condition. I go a little bit in depth in my Instagram account and in my story, but in layman's term, so my mom carries the trait, my biological dad carries the trait. They had me, and lovely me came out with the full sickle cell disease. And even though it just, it really impacts my life, I am reminded that God didn't cause me to have sickle cell, but He allowed it for a greater purpose. And often I think, okay, if I did not have sickle cell, I don't think I would be as resilient and as gracious towards others, and I just would not be the person that I am today. I am the type of person that is very passionate about healing. I'm very passionate about storytelling. I'm passionate about having long conversations and reminding people that joy is still possible even when life, pardon my French, even when life sucks, even in the midst of pain. Like, I just really like reminding my, people around me that joy is possible. I am a big believer that God created us to live in community, and the enemy, as in the devil, wants us to believe lies and that we are good in isolation. And that's just not true. And throughout my life, I have learned that that is the biggest lie, and that the greatest strength is in numbers, that we were created to lean on one another. Just this past weekend, I struggled a little bit with big emotions. As I have said before, I feel all my emotions. And it's just such a joy to have friends that you can text, hey, pray for me, I am struggling. And they are right there to pray and encourage. And so I can continue to keep going and encourage you guys through it all. Okay, so going a little bit more back on, I keep on kind of talking in circles, but going back in how sickle cell affects the blood cells, it affects the red blood cells, making them crescent shape, like a moon shape, and when they stick together, they don't flow as easily through the blood vessels, so leading to intense pain, a lot of fatigue, and just many other complications. And often, like, people will see me in the streets and have no idea of the struggles that are going on within. I am constantly just fatigued. I have to, like I said in the previous episode, I have to constantly be conscious of how much rest I get, or else I just yeah, I crash. So, how was my childhood with sickle cell? Honestly, the very first memory, which I don't think anybody told me, but I think it's just a memory that I have, or a thought that perhaps I have, is that because of sickle cell, my biological father did not want anything to do with me. That is one of the things that constantly I have to battle, this sense of rejection because of sickle cell. Also, another thing is just in my childhood, not being able to play with other kids as normal. I always had a little bit of limitations when playing because I had to stop sooner than other kids because I got tired sooner. And I remember also getting a lot of nosebleeds. I'm not quite sure if that was because of sickle cell or because of extreme hot weather in Angola, but that's one of the things that I also remember. That was more childhood, but so moving on to teenage years. In my teenage years, I learned how to kind of hide my pain, but not very well because I went to school in Ewing, Nebraska. Okay, let me back up. My family and I moved to the United States when I was 11 years old. And we first lived in Atlanta, Georgia. And there I actually, this is a fun story to tell. There I started learning Spanish because my siblings and I, especially my older sister and I, just were having a hard time learning English. So we put Spanish, well, Mexican soap operas, I want to say, especially from Telemundo. No, not Telemundo, Univision. And it was by watching a lot of novellas that I learned Spanish. And today I say to a lot of people, like, I am most fluent in English, which is kind of sad, and then Spanish because I practice all the time with my husband, and a lot of my friends speak Spanish. And then last but not least, Portuguese. Sad because it is my mother tongue, and I don't practice as much. I only practice it when I talk to my cousins back home and when I talk to my mom. But anyways, yes, we came to the United States almost 28 years ago, like I said before. And I remember living in Atlanta for about 2 years and then moving to little Ewing, Nebraska. Guys, look it up in the map. It is just in the boonies, a little town in the boonies. Living in Ewing was a learning experience for sure. But yeah, as a teenager living there, I didn't want to be treated differently, so I always tried to do my best to just try to fit in. I remember one time, I think it was either a homecoming dance or maybe it was prom, where I was just having a great time, dancing my heart out, and everybody kept on saying, "Oh, you're such a great dancer." So, I mean, it just fueled me up, and I just kept on dancing. And the next day, unfortunately, I ended up having a sickle cell crisis. And navigating that was really hard because high schoolers in a small town are not always the kindest people. I remember there was a girl that, not even one of my best friends in high school, just one of my classmates that told people that I was so sick that I was going to die. And I was venting to two of my bestest friend in high school, and I'm like, she didn't even come and see me. How did she know? But those are just certain things that I regularly had to filter. I regularly had to fight through and just remember, like, it is the people that are in front of me that are most important. And yeah, like Brooke and Autumn were there for me. And like, this is when I say, like, community is so important. Just even when in teenage years, like, parents, if you have kids with sickle cell, be sure that they're surrounded by friends. Be sure that they have close friendships. Don't hinder them from going out in the world and exploring. That is a detriment. That is not living. So I graduated high school from UN Nebraska, and then I just remember living with sickle cell that my mother lived with a lot of fear that I wasn't going to live past my 17th birthday. And every time I tell this story, it kind of hits at my emotions. But there was, and I've heard from many individuals, like, having a child with sickle cell anemia is just not easy because you are counting the days, you are counting the hours. I always grew up hearing that one of my cousins, did not make it to his 18th birthday with sickle cell anemia. He passed away before 18. And another one, she was actually also named after our grandma, Joana Paula was her name. She also passed away either in the transition to 18 or right before 18. And so, understandably so, my mom always had a little bit of fear. And so college wasn't in the radar necessarily. College was kind of a second thought. I think my parents just had in mind, let's get her through high school. Let's get her through into her 18th birthday, and then we'll evaluate. And that was really hard because you kind of carry the fears of your parents. As a kid, I feel like I did carry some of the fears of my mom, just because I always thought that I was going to die before 18. And by the grace of God, I remember after graduating high school, my parents and I and my siblings went on a vacation. And when I say it is by the grace of God, literally all the way through our vacation, like, we used to do road trips, a lot of road trips, fun road trips. And throughout the road trip, I would see little signs that would say, Jesus got you, or something like that. And then, like, plates, driver plates or whatever, that would say, Jesus love you. And then billboards. I remember this one billboard, he got you. And then it's like signed, Jesus, or underneath, like, God. And I just remember having a conversation with my mom and saying, Mom, like, there's all these things that are, all these signs that are just popping, and I've been journaling about it, and I don't know what it means. Well, that very summer, we ended up visiting a previous classmate of my dad, my stepdad, and Aunt Carol and Uncle Bill were the angels that God was putting in my way, like, in my journey. I remember being at Aunt Carol and Uncle Bill's, late Uncle Bill's, lake house in Tennessee, and it's a little bit of a blur, but I just remember them asking me what were the plans for college, and I said, well, there are none. And again, I could just almost cry. And Uncle Bill asked me, well, how would you like to stay with us and live with us, and we'll put you through school, and And Carol, and Carol has a nursing background, and Carol will take care of you, and will take care of your medical needs. And I was just floored. But the first thing that came out of my mouth was, well, if mom and dad will allow me, because being an African child, you always know that unless your parents say yes, you are not doing anything, okay? But they had a discussion with Aunt Carol. My parents had a discussion with Aunt Carol and Uncle Bill. And I ended up staying in Tennessee that very summer of '04, to be very specific. Um, Golly, that's a long time ago. So that's to say that we might at times see that or think that life is going nowhere, but no, like God has always a plan for us. There's always hope that can be held on. We just have to continue on and not give up on the journey that we are in. Let me tell you that living with Aunt Carol and Uncle Bill was definitely a great blessing. It taught me to not treat sickle cell as a crutch. It taught me to be brave. It taught me that I didn't have a death sentence. So in my 18th birthday, it was definitely a celebration. It was definitely a celebration, and which makes me just very joyous to say that I now have a lot of clarity as I am in my adulthood, which I desire to go a little bit more in depth in the story of my college years, especially with sickle cell also. But adulthood have definitely brought a little bit more clarity. There has been times still that I have felt down and out, but I found that there is in those hard moments, in those quite hard moments, my faith grew, my faith deepened, and I realized God doesn't only show up on my good days. He shows up tenderly on the hard ones too. And he, again, didn't cause sickle cell. He allowed sickle cell so that I could become the person that I am today. And I can now celebrate the person that I am today. And I've learned that vulnerability is a strength. Vulnerability is not a weakness. So if you allow me, just want to leave you with a little encouragement. If you're listening to the sound of my voice right now, I just want to say thank you again for being with me today. And I just want to speak directly to your heart real quick. Friends, no matter what your story is, no matter your circumstances and where you are in life, please remember that there is power in numbers. Don't do life alone. If you feel like you don't have a close friend, first off, God is a very present comforter. Second, let's talk. Leave a comment in the notes. Let's build a community right here. Don't believe the lie that you are alone. Just have honest conversations with those around you. And you might be surprised at who's been through what you're going through right now, or who's going through it right now as at the same time. And please remember, guys, your today is not your yesterday. Your tomorrow holds new mercies. There's always more joy, especially when we learn to count our blessings. And this is the kind of strength I've come to know. The kind of strength that doesn't deny the pain, but also doesn't get swallowed by it. So if you are in a hard season right now, I want you to know once again, you are not alone. You don't have to be perfect to be powerful. You don't have to be faking a smile to be loved. This space was created for you to rest, to reflect, and to find bits of joy even in the messy middle of your story. Guys, thank you so much for spending this time with me. If this episode resonated with you, I'd love to hear what you're grateful for today. Please leave a comment, send a message. Let's connect. Let me just share a little bit. Today, I am grateful with cafecito, meaning coffee, like coffee with friends. I am thankful for long conversations, and I'm thankful for this platform. You can also watch this episode on YouTube, as I mentioned before, where subtitles are available in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. Until next time, remember, you are not alone, and joy is still possible. One breath, one step, and one day at a time.
There's joy